Does he still hold a concern that pursuing student loan relief could provide a giveaway to certain college graduates? And as a result of that, is there consideration of having income caps with any sort of student loan relief?
There is, and he's talked about that back to when he ran for president. I would say when he talks about the type of schools, there are a number of schools, some you mentioned, that have larger endowments than other schools, public universities and others. And so what he's referencing is making sure it's targeted to those graduates who have the greatest need. And it wasn't meant to discriminate, it's more meant to make a point about where the needs are greatest. And that's why he has talked about in the past having an income cap as well.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, they're talking about their position when it comes to this ongoing student loan forgiveness battle. First, of whether or not to do it at all, how much to maybe potentially forgive for, and maybe now who to afford that benefit to. And now they're talking about income caps. Let's look into some of those details. Part of Jen Psaki's explanation included this. She says, well, the president talked back in the campaign about taking steps or looking at steps to help people making less than $125,000 a year. So that's the frame through which he's considering, making considerations at this point, is what she said, on board of Air Force One as the president traveled to Alabama to tour Lockheed Martin plant. So some of the details of this latest level of forgiveness guidelines. In recent weeks, senior Biden aides have examined limiting the relief to people who earn less than either $125,000 or $150,000 as individual filers in the previous year, is what the people did say. That plan would set the threshold at around $250,000 or $300,000 for couples who file their taxes jointly. Is what also these same insiders said. No final decisions have been made, and the people familiar with that matter stressed that planning was fluid and subject to change. Also, the administration has discussed limiting forgiveness to undergraduate loans, excluding those who had taken out loans for professional degrees in fields such as law and medicine, is what the folks said. So first thoughts on this, Miss Lawyer, since you went to law school and you took that postgraduate degree, what are your thoughts?
I don't think it's right. I think that it needs to include individuals who have advanced degrees, not simply because I have one, because I've paid off my student loans, well, largely for the most part. But at the same time, is that there are a number of people who are Black and brown who are not represented when it comes to individuals in professional degrees, whether it's medicine or law or any of the other fields. And if you want individuals in those fields, you're going to have to help make do, because the fact is also that our society continues to pay Black and brown people less. So while I'm making like 70 something cents on the dollar for every white male who's doing the job, that means that I'm not bringing in as much as I would like in addition to that and having to pay student loans. So if anything, it should be an income to student loan debt ratio. And it definitely needs to include professional degrees to encourage people of color, who generally are the most marginalized and in need, to continue to pursue those licenses so we can have more representation in those particular fields.
There's so many discussions that surround this, I think, that surround this topic that we blow off, not us particularly, but just blown off in the country in general. When it comes to, like you said, how much certain folks make compared to white men on particular jobs, or even accessibility to certain jobs, pay rates in those jobs, and under people being overqualified for jobs that they have to take once they graduate from college. All those things happen and we discuss it and they get blown off as, oh yeah, just get a job, it's what's available. And then student loans come up later and we act like those things are not connected. So these people who are, quote, overeducated, as you guys should look up what Matt Gaetz was saying today, it's completely unrelated, but he hates educated people. Those overeducated people who are doing jobs that they shouldn't have to be doing, that don't have anything to do with their degrees because those jobs aren't available, we blow that off. But then we still have them having to pay those loans. And they say, get a job. What job? Here's some pressure that's coming from the left, at least. Joe Biden is catching it from all corners. So the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and Congressional Black Caucus are among those that have pushed the administration to take aggressive action, in part because Black Americans represent a disproportionate share of student debtors. Black people are 16% of the US population, but owe 23% of the nation's student debt. Representative AOC, who's been pushing the White House to forgive student debt, said that the administration should cancel as much as $50,000 per borrower, and expressed concern that $10,000, which is what Biden pushed, I think, on the campaign trail, would not amount to a meaningful improvement for many people. So I think makes sense. Now, also when it comes to minorities or folks that have been oppressed, getting to this level and getting education to advance themselves within our society, it's because historically they've been kept down. So that's why these numbers are different. But we don't acknowledge that either. Why should we talk about oppression and what we've done throughout our history? There's pressure from the right as well, Adrian. Mitt Romney tweeted in response to some of this. Desperate polls call for desperate measures. Dems consider forgiving trillions of student loans. Other bribe suggestions: forgive auto loans, forgive credit card debt, forgive mortgages, and put a wealth tax on the super rich to pay for it all. That's his problem. And what could possibly go wrong? I think what could go wrong is the people who have not been paying their fair share of taxes would pay their fair share in taxes. Kevin McCarthy, he also jumped on this as well. He's not talking about his text messages though. Fact. Debt cannot be forgiven. It can only be transferred. Someone always has to pay. As socialist Democrats plot to transfer of student loan debt, here's who wins and who loses. As he pointed out, he says student loan forgiveness, in quotations, the winners are high earners, like doctors and lawyers, colleges and universities also. The losers, as he points out, are taxpayers, students and parents who have already paid off their loans, future students as the cost of college will continue to skyrocket. What the hell are you doing about that, Kevin? Nothing. Anyone who has a mortgage, car loan, or credit card debt, as their payments also pile up. And every single American, he says, as this does nothing to solve our debt crisis and will drive inflation even higher. Again, what do you think Kevin McCarthy is doing about those problems? What do you think he's doing about the fact that people aren't paying their taxes and then they continue to get bailed out? Because he keeps talking about how forgiveness is not one of those things that happen when it comes to loans. Someone should ask these corporations, someone should ask these rich folks that keep asking for bailouts, because we need it to push the economy along and trickle it down on all the people that we're not paying and that we're actually taking advantage of. They won't say those parts because those parts are the reality. Other thoughts, Adrian?
No, you're absolutely right. Kevin McCarthy, he's not talking about what he could be doing to reduce our debt, so to speak. No, he just wants to further the class divide. And so that if that means that people who come from marginalized groups, including coming from a certain class demographic, means that they are going to be burdened by debt in order to get jobs or opportunities or even be considered for them, he's okay with that, because as long as it keeps that 1% in the 1%, they're all good.
You know what we never hear? We always hear how the rich and corporations need bailouts, tax breaks, more money so that they can move the economy along, because they're gonna re-inject it into our system, right? Or trickle it back down to workers. Why don't we ever talk about how all these people who owe these college, these student are hobbled by student loan debt, how if they're freed from that, they're members of society where their money goes back into the economy. Their money flows back into it. They maybe start a business. They have employees. I thought we were about the small business owners. All these things that they like to preach don't actually mean anything when it comes to the folks that they hate. And that's the majority of the country.